Hey there, welcome to First Glance with Jody, Vance. You may or may not recognize my interview subject of the day, but I can tell you that Ian Paterson is definitely one of my favorites because he is solving all of my problems. Eventually, ultimately, when I can access what Plurilock brings to the table, I will tell you it's PLUR on the TSX venture. Very important to jot that down as we dive in here, Ian. I've lost count of the number of times you and I have connected. So we do need to sort of reinforce what Plurilock is for our viewer before we get into all the things that have happened since last we spoke, which is far too long ago, I will tell you, my friend. September is far too long. So what is Plurilock?
Well, always great to be back. I think you're right. I think we are on the sixth first look or thereabouts, but it's always a pleasure to be back. So for those who don't know or who maybe have forgotten, Plurilock is a cybersecurity company. We are public. And there's really two parts to our business. We are, at the end of the day, helping our customers who are enterprises and government organizations with cybersecurity. Specifically within cybersecurity, there's a new concept called zero trust. Not new, but still gaining more widespread adoption. And so we help with enabling a zero trust strategy through two ways. We have two divisions within our company. We have a solutions division, which is really focused on growth and enabling broad distribution to the market. And then we also have a technology division where we have some very innovative software capabilities, which effectively allow us to identify people based on their behavior. And so the strategy for us is we're focused on growth on two sides, and we've made some pretty compelling acquisitions last year, and very excited about hopefully what 2022 brings.
It is exciting on so many levels, and at the root of it, if I can, I don't want to say dumb it down, but simplify it to the degree that it impacts every single person who interacts with technology. How many times have you had to reset your password because your password didn't work? And when you and I first met, you said, well, Plurilock basically has come up with a technology that as soon as you start touching your mouse and using your keyboard, your computer knows it's you.
Well, authentication, just as a broad field, I mean, passwords haven't changed much since the 1970s. And what Plurilock is trying to do is to either replace or augment the way that you prove your identity to a computer. Now, passwords are ubiquitous. They do a pretty decent job, but I like to explain this through an analogy of a house. And so if you think about your house at home, the front door of your house probably has a lock on it. Consider that to be your password, right? It keeps out most people, but what happens if somebody figures out a way around that front door? Let's say they break a window next to the door and they still get in. What Plurilock is focused on doing is we have a behavioral biometrics technology that allows us to identify people based on how you type on the keyboard and move a mouse. So in that house analogy, it's like having a motion sensor that can differentiate between you and your family versus some other intruder continuously. And I think that's really the important part, is that we're trying to change the paradigm from just a single point in time authentication to really having a conversation around the entirety of the workday.
So tell us then, the two products that you have, there's Adapt and there's Defend, right?
Adapt is like the deadbolt on the front door. So we look at how you type your username and password. That's effectively a second factor of authentication. So it's the combination of your behavior plus your password that gets you into a system. Once you're in, then Defend is continuously authenticating. Every 3 to 5 seconds, we're doing a little minute, invisible identity check in the background. And what we find is that over usually about a minute, if we have enough of those individual checks in a row that all say Ian is definitely not Ian, then we can take action. We can lock them out, we can trigger a security team, or we can take some other escalated activity to deal with that threat.
That is fascinating and fantastic. And in my mind, the simplistic mind, right? Because I'm living in a very juvenile security sense of the word. But how many times has somebody had their social media taken over by a workmate who happened to walk by their computer,
Sure.
as simplistic as that might be, but on a massive scale, how that constant authentication, it basically would stop the ability for somebody to say, put in your password because we're cleaning out your bank account.
Well, the number of attacks are large. And in some cases, they're very creative. In some cases, they're kind of silly, but they still work. So as an example, the last couple of weeks, there's been a number of news articles warning people of getting USB thumb drives in the mail. They stick those thumb drives in the computer and it acts like it's a keyboard and it starts typing on the keyboard to take over the device, install malware, etc. Like this happens regularly.
Wow.
So that would be an example of an attack we defend against. Also, if somebody steals your password and tries to log in as you and get access, we would also defend against that type of attack. So the threat vectors can be different, but fundamentally what we're trying to do is provide much more assurance of the identity of the person on that workplace device.
And gives that extra layer for those who might have compromised identifications of any sort. This is really fascinating. Let me reiterate, sorry, I get so deep into our conversations, Ian, I forget my job here. My job is to make sure that the investors that are watching right now know how to find you. Obviously, Plurilock is right over your shoulder. You can see PLUR is the stock symbol on the TSX venture. You've been ongoing since we started speaking about various patents that you have confirmed. Can you just give, because I love the story so much, where you're located and how this all began for you?
Well, I, like everybody else, am in my house. I'm in my basement right now. And in particular, we are based in Victoria, British Columbia, although it's hard to say that we're based here because the reality is everybody is working from home. We're fully remote. We're distributed. So we certainly have a cluster of people in Victoria. This is as a result of the fact that we spun out research at the University of Victoria that formed the nucleus of our software and our technology. And that was the beginning part of Plurilock. And so we're very much a Canadian, Western Canadian story. We now have people in Vancouver. We announced 2 acquisitions last year. The first with a company called Aurora. And so they're based in California and in Los Angeles specifically. And then we also have some folks in India as well. There's benefits to having a really diverse team, but diverse both in the sense of culture, but also time zones. It gives us people at different hours. So if one of our customers calls and it's the middle of the night here, hopefully we have some people who are online somewhere else. Yeah. And my hope is that we'll continue to grow geographically, and so that we'll, if we have a conversation this time next year, we'll be much larger.
I enjoy the fact that the homegrown, born of, sort of a think tank into what has become a company that continues to grow in a way that is groundbreaking. And I've been able to follow along on your journey in a way that's been really exciting for me personally to watch. Your success is great. Who could have imagined, as you mentioned, you're working from home right now, you're in your basement with your virtual background. This is not a virtual background, but my fireplace is nice and warm over here.
I was going to say the cat in the background was a great video effect.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Working, that's my dog somewhere. That's my
there
dog.
We go.
Yeah, we got Calvin. We got 3 dogs hanging out here. They're getting very good at Zoom calls. But the whole concept of how it used to be, you'd go into work and you'd swipe your security card and you'd sit down at your desk that's hardwired to the company system, and everything is very, even then at risk, but very box checky, right? Yeah. And the world has just completely evolved and changed in the last 2 years, and security is changing so rapidly as well.
Well, I think that's part of the shift that we're seeing to more of a zero trust model. Again, zero trust is just this idea that you shouldn't ever assume that the person or the thing is authorized and should be there. We saw there were a number of marquee activities that took place last year, including President Biden's executive order, where he called out zero trust and zero trust architecture as being a key requirement, both in the federal space. But the expectation also is that in the commercial sectors, they would adopt more of a zero trust mindset. And this is in comparison to the days where if you had a security problem, you would deploy a firewall, and a firewall would keep out the barbarians at the gate, and you just trust everybody who is inside the firewall. And that just doesn't really work anymore. And to your point, people who are now working at home, whereas previously they were in an office, behind a locked door, having gone up an elevator with a key card, with gone past a security guard at the lobby, like there's all sorts of physical controls that are absent with a remote workforce. And so this is really part of the reason why I think we're seeing a much greater adoption and focus around zero trust than we ever have. And I don't have the exact statistic with me right now, but I believe that the number of companies thinking about zero trust adoption, I believe was like over 80% of a survey that was done. And so this is a big deal. And we're certainly at a great point where Plurilock is able to help companies with their zero trust journey.
So let's get into specifically, you mentioned Agora, the relationship you have with that's the California company, right?
Aurora,
Aurora, excuse me,
yes.
Aurora.
Northern Lights.
So expand on, from an investor perspective, how that has impacted Plurilock and how you're moving it forward, how it's growing and expanding, how you're managing it from a business perspective.
Well, if you zoom out a little bit, 2020, which was the year that we went public, total revenue for that year was about $650,000, round numbers, right?
Yeah.
Last year, the full year's revenue is not in yet, but on a 9-month basis, at the end of September, total revenues were around $23 million. So you can definitely see, like,
hold on a second. What?
Yeah, we're very focused on
wow,
growing the business. And so you can start to see some of the data points now that we're giving investors to say, look, we said we wanted to go public. We said we wanted to do M&A. We said we wanted to invest in the product. We said that we wanted to go out and sell. And now here are the things that you can actually look to see what have we accomplished. So in 2021, certainly the top line revenue growth was tremendous. Now, a lot of those customer wins were federal government, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Special Operations Command. On the state side, a number of marquee California state agencies, as well as commercial accounts as well. So from my perspective, we've done a great job of building that base of customers. At the same time, we talked about the product. And I gave you that number, 3 to 5 seconds, and then we take action after a minute. That actually came from a customer evaluation of the Defend product in particular. It was a large overseas financial institution that had gone through and done due diligence on the product prior to purchase. And so they shared those statistics with us, and that's what we put out in the press release to say, look, people who wanted the capability, this is what they actually found in the usage of it. That ultimately led to them purchasing it.
Yeah.
And then the last item you touched on was patents. And so we've been very, very focused on defending our competitive moat. And we do that through filing first of provisional patents, and then we follow those up with full patent filings. And so we've announced a number both of provisionals as well as full patent filings that we've made. Of course, we now need to wait for the U.S. Patent and Trade Office to prosecute those and see if we can actually get them fully approved. But ultimately, we're executing on a number of fronts to grow the business and ultimately, hopefully, increase shareholder value.
Laser focused. I am so excited for you and everybody at Plurilock. Ian Paterson is the CEO, just so you know, PLUR on the TSX Venture. And Ian, if people want to touch base in terms of investor relations, what's their best mode of transportation? Where are they going to find you?
Whatever is easiest. You're most welcome to send me an email, ian@plurilock.com. I should probably put that up here somewhere.
Yeah, get that over there.
Plurilock.com also has a great investor section. You can go through and you can sign up. I will warn you, we do. Certainly last year we had a tremendous amount of sales wins that we kept putting out there. So it did get a bit. There were a lot of emails flying. I'll just say that. But we're always happy to have a conversation. If you're an existing shareholder or if you're a prospective shareholder, always love to have a chat.
All of those wins. What a Good problem to have, Ian. Always a pleasure to chat with you and keep me up to date. I'm super excited and impressed with those financials that you just dropped like they were nothing. I buried the lead. I guess I should ask you about those off the top of the next first glance. Thanks for doing this as always. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Jody.